you trust Ferguson Roof Systems to replace your roof, we go the extra mile to protect your home and property. On every job, we deploy durable netting to protect your home's exterior and landscaping. It's just one more reason why you should call Ferguson Roof Systems today.
Hey everyone, Meteorologist here in Tuttle, back with you again. It is Saturday night about 9:30 here across the Oklahoma City metro area. We're broadcasting live from AT's Weather Center. You come to the right place. We're going to talk about the threat for severe weather for tomorrow, late afternoon, and during the evening hours, and see who's going to be affected, what the threats are, the timing, and all that kind of stuff. So I would take your moment here to hit the old like button, to hit the share button, tell your friends and family to tune in real quick as we go through the science behind the madness of Mother Nature. So good to see you guys as always here this week. I know some of you have been trying to send me some stars on Facebook, and for whatever reason, they ain't working. Even though it looks like they work, they don't work. So you can try it to see, but the last few days they haven't worked. So Facebook broke something, but are you surprised? So it is what it is. You guys up there on YouTube, thanks for checking in as well. Always leaving the comments. I see you, Jim from Mustang. Gary's in the house. A. Brown, Jeff Hallwell, always there. So I always see those friendly faces. And Scorpion is in the house as well. I like you guys' names. All right, so Jody will be taking care of you guys in the comment section as well. So make sure you converse with old Miss Jody. Tell her say hello. And say what town you're chiming in from. Guys out there on Twitter, thanks for checking in here. Grab you a frosty beverage, sit back, relax. We're going to talk a little science here, a little 101. So welcome to class. Class is in session. Okay, so let's get on with it, shall we? First thing we're going to do is talk about this. I'm so over it. You see what this is? That's 43 degrees, man. Are we ever going to warm up again? So yeah, we had, that little false spring, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week. And then Thursday, Friday, and even Saturday reminded us, no, it's still winter time, at least for a few more days. So again, a cold day out there. And that's kind of sets the stage of what's coming here for the weekend. So because of the cold weather we had, believe it or not, it is going to save us from what would have been a very nasty situation. I mean, nasty. Nasty like we hadn't seen before. So, excuse me. So what happens is it creates a more stable, low-level environment. Sorry. There we go. I need some coffee. It creates a more stable, low-level environment, which then helps to preclude surface-based thunderstorms that can produce, in this coming environment, what would be a ton of not only tornadoes, but strong to violent tornadoes. That's the kind of atmosphere that we would have had tomorrow evening if it weren't for this cold air mass that came in a few days before. So that's good news for us. Now, the reason why? Well, probably because it's February, guys. I mean, it's not, late March, April, May. A few weeks does make a difference when it comes to cold air intrusion. So that is the good saving grace. So I'm going to give you the short version up front here, and then we're going to give you the long version. But for those folks that don't have, 10, 15 minutes to sit back and check out all the hows and whys, we are going to have severe storms develop in the eastern Texas Panhandle tomorrow evening and afternoon, and they will quickly move from west to east. I mean, flying. We're talking 50 plus miles per hour flying. So they're going to be clearing the state just a couple hours after midnight. So it'll be about a 7-hour window of event here from west to east across Oklahoma. They will have some pockets of damaging wind, pockets of hail up to about a golf ball. So the the wind speeds could be up around, we'll say 60, 70, maybe even 80 miles per hour. Not everybody, of course, just select areas. And I would say it's a very lower probability for a tornado, and mostly confined across parts of western and say maybe southwestern Oklahoma for a few hours, for like the supercell type before the whole thing kind of congeals into a squall line. So it's not a lot of time to work with. And you might still have like an embedded supercell within the line. The problem is we still have a pretty good cap in place, so I don't know if they're going to be surface-based enough. We don't have a lot of deep-level moisture to work with because of the aforementioned cold spell we've had. So that's a limiting factor. So that's good news. Can't rule it out, which means I'll probably broadcast them live and watching them just because it's a safety thing. And then once it kind of gets to central and eastern Oklahoma with the squall line well developed, it's usually kind of a damaging wind event. You can have little vorticity centers along the leading edge of those. We call those QLCS tornadoes. Quasi-linear convective system, that's the fancy term for it, but QLCS for short. What that means is they're baby tornadoes. You're probably going, baby tornado? Who wants a baby tornado? Nobody wants no tornadoes. But yeah, so at least it's not the supercell kind, meaning that they're typically much weaker, transient, smaller, that kind of deal. But they can do some damage, obviously, usually in the EF0, EF1 category. On occasion, I've seen them get to around an EF2, and on a rare occasion, I've seen them get an EF3, and that's been super rare. They're mostly in the 0 to 1s, as most tornadoes are anyway. Even the supercell type tornadoes are in that lower end category, which is great because those are the kinds that are easily survivable, don't cause a whole lot of damage if you have sufficient shelter. But that's the situation in a nutshell coming up for tomorrow. So that said, now let's go back to the maps and get into the science behind all of this mess. So there's our cold temperatures out there this morning. We were to the teens, still could creep in the Panhandle area. 20s here across central Oklahoma and 30s out to the east. We're going to say goodbye to that nonsense. Let's go into the afternoon temperatures. Well, we topped out into the lower 40s, gross. But look at the Panhandle, man. They hit the 70s out there. They're from the teens to the 70s. Can you imagine a 50 to 60 degree warm up? Woo! Now, there is a threat for severe weather from the Storm Prediction Center. The red area, that is the moderate category. So that means that they are expecting more numerous reports of severe weather when you get into these higher colored regions. In other words, per square mile, there should be more reports versus, say, out in this area or out in this area. But in the slight risk area, which is all the way here in the yellow, you could, in theory, have any report of severe storms. When you look at the individual threats, the tornado threat outlined here in the brown, it's low, just so you know, but it's out here across northwest and western Oklahoma and into the eastern Texas Panhandle, and that'll be massaged. All this will be massaged tomorrow with the new data that comes in overnight time and tomorrow morning. The hail out and across pretty much west of I-35, and the wind, that's the biggest threat with this storm system. And that, again, may not all be realized because of some funky things that happen in the atmosphere with the stability that happens that prevents those winds from reaching down to the surface. Again, another saving deal because this would also be a big widespread wind event as well. I mean, not just a few areas of winds up around 80, but we're talking multiple widespread areas of that. So, telling you, we're dodging a bullet. It's still gonna be bad, but trust me, we're dodging a nasty bullet. All right, timing. 6 to 9 p.m. out here in western Oklahoma. That does work its way to the western side of the metro, though, by the time we head to about the 9 o'clock hour. Again, here's a close-up view. Tornado potential low and mainly highlighted in this little red area, probably west of Oklahoma City, so west of Canadian County, kind of putting the brakes on. We'll look at the close-up view of the stability, or instability, I should say, of where that most likely will occur. Again, golf ball size hail, winds possibly of 80 miles per hour with some of these storms. All right, if we go a little bit further to the east, the threat does continue there for eastern Oklahoma, but is a lot on the lesser side of magnitude. But also, you guys will be under the gun for some wind. All right, so there again, there's a tornado risk. I think highest out here in western Oklahoma. Northwest, there's a lot lower dew point values to work with, although shear still looks pretty good. More of a freak occurrence up here, but I think the whole thing is really low anyway for a freak occurrence, which is good. If we look at the analog data, if we go back to storms in a similar pattern, and again, they don't have the funky low-level temperature profile that we're going to have, but at least to see what winds aloft and all that kind of stuff looks like. Historically, pretty good probability of seeing some severe weather here in the Panhandle and in western Oklahoma. If you break it down into wind, it likes to favor the southeastern Texas Panhandle. And this is during the early part of the event, not the entire event itself. This is kind of the kick-starting it. Big widespread area for some sort of low levels for some hail, and does favor a little bit of a tornado. So there is at least some signals that in the past, a setup like this has produced severe weather. And when you go to like the number of reports, it's fairly low. Like if I pick 5 severe weather reports of any severe weather, in other words, wind, hail, or a tornado, the probability is only in the 20 to 30 percentile ring, just scattered out and about. So the models are having a tough time with the signal of anything more substantial than what it really could be. And again, I think that's because some of the data is working its way in that we're a little more stable at the lowest levels. If we look at just the the ingredients that we need for severe weather. We can take a look at those. So we have the low area of the, let me go back one right here. Let's go back to here. So this guy comes in right around 6 o'clock. This is the upper level low. And all the colors that I've talked about before when you watch me on these jet stream maps, the brighter the colors, the stronger the lift. And they're off the charts coming in right here from the Panhandle into western Oklahoma. So this is the direct hit if that's what you want for severe weather. Plus, it comes out negative tilted. So this is the trough axis aloft. So when a storm system kicks out and swings out ahead of itself, kind of like it's kicking its leg, like you're walking along and you just go woo, you kick your leg out like this. That's called negative tilted. So the center of the low, there we go. Center of the low is still right here, but the leg kicks out ahead. What that does is enhances the wind flow in the mid and upper levels, and that usually gives you a big punch to a severe weather ability, because it's kind of like just really kicking those storm structures to rotate aloft in the atmosphere. If we look at those winds, for example, we can look at the 6 o'clock hour at 300 millibars, and those winds are a nice divergent pattern. So they split up in this direction and they come out in this direction. So we call this a split flow, and in that split flow, this little V-shaped area is where you get the best exhaust in the atmosphere, the best lift. It's kind of like an upper level vacuum cleaner, just sucking all the air out, evacuating it. And that really helps get those thunderstorms to grow tall and nasty. So that's one element. We have the lift for the other element. Here's the third element, mid-levels, about 500 millibars. We have a speed max that's coming in around 136 knots that comes in, and that punches in across southwest Oklahoma and into the rest of Oklahoma overnight. So we've got that in play. So if I were to look at the upper levels, we talked about this last night. If I looked at the upper levels and mid-levels alone, I'd be freaking out. I'd be going, whoa. So those are just the conditions that we look at when we're forecasting for severe weather. Now, if we look at the lift in the atmosphere down to around 700 millibars, so a few thousand feet off the ground, where you can see like the dry line circulation, where you're going to get the most lift to kick off the thunderstorms, it does highlight right here across the East Texas Panhandle. So there you go. And as we go into like the 9 o'clock hour, that shifts quickly to the east, because it's a fast-moving storm system, so it'll really start to push that instability and that lift into central Oklahoma really rapidly. And there's a lot of it here. I mean, it's off the chart. The color scale tops out. So trust me, it's going to form storms. There's no doubt about it. Now, when we look at the dew point values, this has been, along with the colder air, the reason why things aren't going to be as bad as they could be. So remember, we're dew point in the 30s right now. That's dry. If you step outside, you're like, it's pretty nice, pretty pleasant as far as the dryness of the atmosphere. Then we get the juice that tries to surge northward. Key point here is surge. As we head into around the 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock hour, it makes it to as far north, this is the 60-degree dew point value, right around the Red River. And if you've watched me long enough, you know that we need about 60 here in Oklahoma to get decent tornado probabilities. Anything less than that is very difficult for the storm to do so. It can still try. It may briefly do it, but 60 plus is really kind of the metric. But it does kind of work its way into southwest Oklahoma and the southeastern Texas Panhandle right around 6 o'clock. So any storm that forms in this area may be able to tap into a little bit better moisture, which means slightly better instability and possibly a little bit less of a cap in this area to get a couple of those thunderstorms to produce a potential tornado. And then that may kind of surge northward here into west central Oklahoma before the dry punch moves in and these thunderstorms start to just kind of roll through that zone. Now, by 9 o'clock, you can see how the dew point values have surged here into north central Oklahoma from Stillwater to Oklahoma City down south. So here's the deal with that, though. By then, the cap has built in even stronger than when it was earlier. Phew! Trust me. You want that cap building in strong. Again, that keeps those storms mostly elevated, which keeps the magnitude of the surface-based winds, tornadoes, all that at bay. All right, that means it won't happen. Again, just keeps it on a lower magnitude. All right, let's take a look at the temperatures. So we talked about it being cool today, 40s tonight, still some 30s way up northwest. Then at noontime, we're starting to rebound. We still have some clouds out there. We're going to get more peaks of sun mixed in, but it's a little too late to the party, right? So what we have is temperatures that warm into the 50s and 60s statewide. That is not warm enough. If the clouds hang in there across southwest Oklahoma, like this particular high-resolution model seems to think, that really kills off extreme instability, which is why the storms have a tough time. Now, I'm not going to be willing to go this cold. I'm thinking it'll probably be in the close to 60-degree range for the temperatures. So a few degrees does make a difference, and so I do expect a little bit better of a magnitude with that. But regardless, by 6 and 7 o'clock, temperatures do kind of either hold or they start to, believe it or not, creep up a couple degrees because we're getting that moisture surging in here. So at 8 o'clock, it's actually warmer in Oklahoma City than it was the rest of the day. We're at 60 degrees by this point. So again, that increases the instability a little bit. So there's 63. And I mentioned that last night, how with that moisture surging in right ahead of the time that those storms arrive, we might get a little extra increase in the severe weather magnitude as it moves through Oklahoma City. Now, in my mind, what would that probably most likely be? Probably damaging wind, like 80 miles per hour, for example. So yeah, you could see 80 mile per hour winds here in the metro tomorrow evening, right around 9 to 10 o'clock hour, between that time window. Regardless, anyway, that moves off to the east, and temperatures really cool back behind it as another cold front takes its place as we head into Monday morning. And then Monday afternoon, nice day, we rebound back into the 60s near 70. So Monday will be a great day once we get past the early morning hubbub. All right, here's a look at the instability. Cape values do surge on that tongue of moisture in west central Texas up to around 1,500 joules. That's plenty of instability for storms. However, down here, you probably have a pretty good cap. Really good wind shear, though, from a southeast to southwest direction. This is right around, I think, the 6 o'clock hours, what I did pick. And the reason for that, I want to kind of show you what this looks like. This little red line right here, see this big nudge to the right? That's a monster cap. Not really breakable at that point in time. So in other words, storms have a tough time building where the best instability is. They're more likely to build up in this area of the panhandle where you have hardly any instability because the cap isn't as strong. And of course, each model will vary as to the strength of the cap. But with brute forcing with that system, I think it will break it anyway. It will happen. It's just the problem is that the storms, as they come into the approaching environment ahead of them, are going to have a tough time being surface-based, and that's the issue with that. We're going to look at a couple more indices. Let's go, actually, tell you what, let's do the radar as well. So this is what the best model interpretation is of the atmosphere for tomorrow. So as we head into tonight, there's some cloud sprinkles showing up off and on in the data. But as we head into the afternoon hours, it looks like a couple of showers pop up here, northwestern Oklahoma. Nothing big with those. Then here's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and here's 7. So there's that kind of a squall line developing signature out here in western Oklahoma. What you'll end up watching for is kind of a bow echo shape with this, which is indicative of a squall line with some damaging wind. And that kind of takes shape right here, as you can see. So that may mean out here in this western part of Oklahoma, southwest, is the best probability for not only damaging winds, but also maybe a tornado or two. Also, you can see that little S shape to the line continues to bow through Oklahoma City. Then, once it gets east, and this for you guys up around Tulsa and Shawnee, points down to Ardmore, every hour that goes by, the storm gets weaker and weaker and weaker. So there's 11 o'clock, a very thin line at this point in time. There's midnight, and then there's 1 a.m. So you guys, by the time it hits you in Arkansas, Missouri, it's just good old-fashioned, normal, standard thunderstorm. So this is a mostly western half of Oklahoma event on the severe weather magnitude with a quick decline in the intensity every hour after that as it travels east. We're going to take the wind gusts potential hour by hour, kind of show the idea of potential, what's out there. So as these storms move into this environment at 7 o'clock, they got wind potential up around 65 to 70 miles per hour. All right, let's go to the next hour. So you notice how it's not widespread. It's like pockets of wind. Now the model won't have the exact placement on the pocket. It'll just tell you what the signal is. So for example, this has got a signal here of about 72 miles per hour. This guy up here is close to 80. There's 76, yeah, 78. I just saw on that data point. So again, that's the take home here. And those do, you can see how I want you to see the trend. I mentioned how by 9 o'clock, with that extra moisture, we probably get a bit better of a wind damage potential along I-35 corridor. And look how you've gotten more of these little yellow and brown areas show up as it works its way into central Oklahoma. So these are a lot of 60s to 70s out there. Let's see if anything higher than that. But again, 80 could be on this table as well. This is just a snapshot in time. There's 74 coming through, for example, Southside Oklahoma City. As they work their way east, they will still have the wind potential with them, though, at least for a couple of hours before they continue to weaken. So there's 75. Here's one close to 80. Look at that, 84 miles per hour in Pawnee County, and even some up here in the Kansas. So again, you guys still have to watch out for damaging winds in that area. And the wind continues to threat from Tulsa, and then these little pockets of wind continue up around 70. and then we'll go another hour to midnight. Then these really weaken down here. They're back down to around, well, I say really weaken. It still says 62. I guess that's better than 80. But regardless, still some gusty winds in eastern and eastern Oklahoma. And by 1 o'clock in the morning, it's all gone. And the front itself starts to blow through, and we'll get a little gust of wind with that, 30 to 40 miles per hour. And that's about it with the front. Okay, let's go to the Texas Egg Wharf. The reason I want to show this is sometimes it's pretty good with severe weather events and tornadoes. Take home on this one is the cluster of storms that do develop, same area that we looked at in the other model data, southwest Oklahoma. These little red areas are helicity tracks, which means these are areas of rotation within this thunderstorm that can produce any of the following: hail or tornadoes or just some damaging wind. And so it can be either of the three or a combination of the three. But the point here is that it likes to favor this area out here in western Oklahoma along the I-40 corridor, kind of concentrated in that zone. Still has a few stragglers up northwest, but not a whole lot going on in southwest. I think, again, because it thinks the cap is too strong, and things down here just aren't going to be as robust. It has a different look on the reflectivity, if you notice. Look how it kind of weakens a lot like the other model did. See that? Comes in gangbusters out here in west, hold together, I-35, then after that, not nearly as strong. You don't see a lot of those deep oranges and reds on the screen. When we look at the kind of a cam ensemble mesh as to all the convective models that we have to see how this is going to animate through time, how it's going to look going through, we can do that here. So you can see the blow up there across the eastern panhandle, western Oklahoma, and see all the reds, which means indicating very intense thunderstorms. There's some of those helicity tracks. This model actually favors this little quadrant up here northwest Oklahoma, so maybe some hailers with that and some wind. It does blow through, same thing, I-35 corridor, still pretty strong. And watch about, let's see, there's a Tulsa area around 11 o'clock, midnight, hour after that. And see how thin the line gets? And see how it just kind of continues to weaken? So again, the same trend. What I've shown you, every model that we have, same trend. More robust out west, holds together through the middle, and then weakens every hour after that pretty quickly as it moves to the east. This last little experimental model that they're working with now in the research world is going to take over was some of the ones that we use currently once they tweak it to where they like it. Right now it's still got the same look, and then it's got a lot more of these little tracks down here, and even down here in the west central Oklahoma, the little favorite area I like right here for a potential tornado or damaging winds. That will continue through the metro. You can see how these tracks taper off. Like, in other words, the storms outrun the tracks. It's because the storm's moving so fast in the data, and so it kind of leaves behind what was the trail of the wind with it, or whatever else was a threat. And same thing, see how the line thins out once it goes east, and then by the time it gets to Missouri and Arkansas, it's just nothing to it. All right, so that was one of the things I want to show you. Okay, then rainfall-wise, if you got some of these thunderstorms, obviously going to be brief, heavy downpour, but where this little focused area is, you might get some extra action of training and whatnot. Miles do estimate you could get about an inch, and that's just pocketed all around. They won't know the exact placement of these, just know the take-home here in the western and northwestern parts of the state. Some of these areas are going to get up around an inch of rain very quickly. Others may only get a quarter of an inch, some maybe half an inch. It's going to kind of be hit and miss on all those metrics. And then finally, last but not least, your temperatures. So we'll be back into the 60s and 70s we have for Monday and Tuesday of next week. Wednesday, a little bit of a cool down on into Thursday, and then right after that, we kind of bounce back up a bit. And we look, remember, I've not looked at anything long term, but back when I was looking long term, once we got around to the 8th and 9th, back in this area, there was some indications of another Arctic blast coming our way. So remember, spring's not quite over in the data. So we'll see what happens with that. I had zero time to look at that because obviously we're more focused right now in the short term, and for good reason. All right, so that's all I got for you, and I know that was a lot. That's why I kind of gave it to you in two ways. One being the short version of the forecast, and then the longer version. So aim grace on YouTube. So mostly a straight line wind event. Yes. So the take home with that is, if you've noticed, very heavy rainfall and a straight line wind event. Pockets of hail up to about golf ball size. I can't rule out, a tornado or two. It's just gonna be really hard to do. The one thing I did not show you, I did show you a sounding, but I showed it to you more last night. Was just the amount of shear in the atmosphere is just off the charts. So, in other words, if for whatever reason we can get a storm to get somewhat rooted to where it can pick up some surface instability, to get a tornado, the winds are there. That's not the question. That ingredient is well in place. That's a good question, though. You guys in North Texas, I see you down there in Plano, John. Not a whole big deal for you guys. You're kind of on the southern fringe of all this stuff and pretty good cap in place. But don't worry, you'll get your chance of storms before all is said and done. All right, let me go through Facebook and scroll down here. Jamie says, do you think we'll see more systems like this in April and May? Well, of course, because it's springtime. Now, this exact one, no. This, believe it or not, this one is once... I'm telling you, man, this is like a once every 10-year perfect setup with the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere. If that cold air mass hadn't come in here, I would not be so calm. I would be like, oh my gosh. So yeah. Now, it's still going to be a situation, so just not the situation. So, all right. Eleanor, he wants to do some chasing. Yeah, it's going to be hard to chase a storm that moves around, 50, 60 miles per hour. I know there's a lot of storm chasers itching because A, they want tornadoes, and B, trying to chase something moving that fast when it's already dark, good luck. That's a fool's errand, in my opinion. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting event. All right, Athena, you're welcome. LaDonna, yes, cold air is a good thing. I keep trying to tell that to Jody. I think she was complaining about the cold air here recently. I said it's refreshing. Let's see. I know the California does have snow. We talked about that as well. That big storm system affecting us was sitting out there spinning for a couple of days, and it had a lot of cold air aloft with it. Such magnitude of cold air that it was able to get the snow machine cranking out there. So they had some snow all the way down from, I think, San Diego to L.A., I think it was. So, Oakley, no, can't do that. They'll probably be on wall to wall. I'm just going to tell you this right now. In case you guys don't know, if you're going to watch any of your shows on Sunday night on the big networks, you're not going to. I'm just going to tell you out there now. It will be wall to wall storm coverage. And it'll probably start around 6 o'clock. It'll probably start around 5 as they talk about the Eastern Texas panel, which has nothing to do with Oklahoma. But they will do that first. Just kind of get you geared up, get people talking, and then they're going to hook you in there. And at 6 o'clock, it ain't going to be nothing but weather through news time, which is 10 o'clock. All right? So just let you know now, if you live in Oklahoma City or Central Oklahoma, that's going to be the game plan for all the TV stations. And then, once it gets past Oklahoma City, and depending on how the magnitude of the storms, they'll throw in a little bit of news, and they may go from 10:30 to 11. In other words, extend the newscast half an hour if there's still a lot of damage, or if there is. If not, standard 10:30. And then after that point, it's back to weather coverage, but it starts to trickle down. It starts to do more of these cut-ins type deal versus wall-to-wall. It's usually how that'll work. So that means if you guys are watching out around Shawnee, from that point eastward, the Tulsa or the Oklahoma City stations will drop off pretty quick. The Tulsa stations will pick you guys back up. Every area east of that, for one, two reasons. They just have a tendency to do that, and two, the storm's moving so fast, they'll be out of their television viewing area pretty quickly. So that's the other deal. I see you, Jody. So yeah, Karen, we talked about that earlier. It's definitely a straight line wind event, mostly. You will probably still have, some of you still get some hail, and maybe mostly small. Golf ball size looks like the biggest in the data, and then can't rule out a tornado or two out in far, west central, western Oklahoma. That seems to be the favorite area in the data. Sometimes you can get like a QLCS tornado along the squall line, which would be rolling through central and eastern Oklahoma before it starts to weaken. So that is a possibility as well. But the problem is, let's say you have a pocket of 85 mile per hour winds from the squall line. You won't be able to tell the difference between that and the small tornado of a QLCS that would develop. They're basically kind of the same. But that's kind of what's on the docket, and that would be kind of in sporadic places. It won't be all solid along the line, kind of hit and miss along the line. John, let's see. Durant is closer to DFW than Oklahoma City or Tulsa, but DFW weather guys don't cover north of the border. No, and oftentimes the Dallas guys won't even cover to the border. That's like they'll take you to Gainesville, and then that's it. You don't get anything past that. I don't know what's going on over there. But again, it's TV market size, so that's the reason. Because you got Sherman, Denison, you got Wichita Falls, and so there's some overlapping of TV markets, and that's one of the main reasons as well. Just so you know, they kind of stick with the Dallas, Tarrant County, and then just kind of north a little bit for what they do down there. I'll cover the whole state of Oklahoma, and then I'll cover western Arkansas, North Texas, southern Kansas, on these big events where you are going to get tornadoes and that kind of stuff. And then, of course, when I do the forecast, I'll mention you guys as well. But outside of that, for regular thunderstorms, I don't usually cover anybody just because they're thunderstorms. Let's see. Laura, sun's heading to Ponca City and then back in the afternoon by 7. Well, if they're going to head back at 7, that's an hour and a half drive or so, 2 hours, depending how fast they go from Ponca City to Oklahoma City. So that would put them right at the time of the storm's approach. So they better hoof it. They can use my weather app, AT's Weather to Go. It's free, Apple, Google Play. And then that'll tell them if they're going to be in the path of the storm whenever they head on out. Well, Holly, that's good. It's about time that guy talked some real stuff. So if you haven't noticed, while you get 6 days of gloom and doom hype out there for the weather, I spend those 6 days off and on just telling you what the actual data looks like and what the weaknesses is and the strengths, and we just go into the science of it. And we can tell you why things have a chance not to work out, as some people that are wishing for them to work out the way that they talk sometimes. And there is some bias in all that. We talked about that last night, so I'm not going to rehash that. But it is what it is. It's the weather, and it gets people worked up sometimes on all sides of the aisle. Okay, so listen, I got to get, because me and Jody are going to go watch a movie. It's 10 o'clock, so we're going to do that. We've been working too much and not enough play. So we're going to take a little break. But I will be I'll probably do a live tomorrow around lunchtime is my guess after I see the morning data. And we'll see how things look and how they fare, if there's been any change. If it looks like the cold air is going to erode more and we'll have more of low-level instability work in. Again, remember, that's the only thing saving us. So if the best model we're using right now, which has been so far spot on, if for whatever reason it blows it and this cold air completely erodes, we mix out, we get a lot more instability, then we can go up several categories on the severe weather end of things. So stick around, tune in, I'll update you, and we'll see where we go. All right, guys, have a good night. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.